Welcome back everybody, it is Andrew back again with another video for Nerds of E-commerce, and today we're going to be talking about data-driven personas and why they're so important in terms of increasing your ROI on your ad spend. If you can understand your customers on a much deeper level, it means you can target them much better as well. So we're going to talk about why data-driven personas are much better than the standard fluffy personas that they use in marketing sometimes, and also talk a little bit about jobs to be done and then how we would actually use some of these on the platforms. We're also going to talk about how we can install all the different pixels and tags and what advertising platforms I recommend using in terms of what you should be adding to the site, even if you're not using them. So we'll talk about that as well. So let's talk about what we'll be covering in this video today. So we're going to cover personas versus data-driven personas. So it's that fluffy kind of personas versus the data-driven stuff that you'll be collecting from your analytics platforms, for your pixels, for your tags, all that stuff that will actually give you proper information on who your customers are and understanding them at a deeper level. We're going to have a quick aside on the jobs to be done framework. So we're going to talk a little bit about jobs to be done. We're not going to dive too far into it, but we'll just kind of give you an overview on what that is and why it's important as well. We're also going to talk about how you can mitigate the risk of having too many pixels and tags that might slow down your website and what you can do in that respect as well. So what is a persona? It's a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customers. They help you focus your time on qualified prospects. So this is what we're talking about now. If you can understand your customer on a much deeper level, it means that you can target them much more effectively. And when we're talking about ad spend, that means cheaper ads and better return on investment. The other thing with personas is it's created through research, surveys, and interviews usually. So again, the sample size is much smaller. So it's usually a room full of people and they kind of go into deep, what we call qualitative analysis or qualitative research, which is fine to understand people on a more psychographic level, which means we understand their interests and, pretty much what they like, what they don't like. But it's still a very small sample size. And, in data, you actually want to get statistically significant data. So statistically significant data is not always available at the beginning because you do need a few months to run it. And it also depends how many people are coming to your store. So sometimes personas can be good at the outset, and we can show you what tools we can use to maybe get a head start on this stuff. But after you've been running it for 6 months, you should be really looking at the data and using the data-driven personas to make decisions. So what makes up a persona? So we've got different things that we look at. We look at age, occupation, family, the frustrations they might be having at the moment with their current products, their goals, life goals, location, name, and motivation. So what motivates them as well. So this is a bio that we usually create after we've answered some of these questions about someone. Usually this information is gathered through, like I said, the different research methods we'd use, the different interview methods we'd use, and then we'd put this into an actual bio and create this. And this is all fictional, by the way. This is just a random picture we found, and this could be someone that they're targeting. Now, the problem with these types of personas, like I mentioned, not fully representative of the entire ideal customer sample. So like I said, statistically, it's not really strong. You're only getting a very small subset of these people. And yes, you're going deep in the qualitative analysis, but again, statistically, it's not really strong. Now, the other problem with these personas is the focus is on the customer, not really why they're consuming the service. So this kind of goes into the jobs to be done methodology, but also some of the things you can understand once you collect proper data on these people as well. Not backed by any real data sources. So again, you can pretty much get the theme that we're going for here, which is that there's not enough data to pretty much with 100% accuracy say that these are your customers. Now, will you ever get 99 to 100% knowledge on who your customers actually are? Not always, but when you're doing data driven, you're much more likely to get there. And the reason for that is the more data you collect on your customers, the more information you're asking them. It's going to take time. But usually data-driven is a much better way to go. So what we're going to do is go have a quick deep dive into the jobs to be done framework. We're not going to spend too much time in there, but we're just going to give you an overview on what it is. So there's this quote from the Harvard Business Review saying the focus on knowing more about customers has taken firms in the wrong direction. So what they mean by that is they're actually looking at the wrong things. They're looking at the wrong motivations for why people are actually buying, and they're not looking in the right places. They're not asking the right questions. They're not asking why a customer is buying something as opposed to who that customer is. So what is the jobs to be done framework? Now, so the unit of analysis is no longer the customer or the product. It is the core functional job the customer is trying to get done. It is a focus on what is a job the customer is trying to achieve. What is the outcome? Because they're not really buying a product, they're buying the outcome. You got to think like that as well. So if they're buying something, what are they trying to get out of it? Like even when we talk about print on demand, which is something we're going to go deeper on in our series, They're buying a t-shirt, but why are they buying a t-shirt? There's a reason for it. There's a job. Going with the nurse example, why someone might be buying it doesn't really matter who they are in terms of how old they are, where they come from. Yes, they're nurses more likely than not, but they'd probably be wanting to show off their family or friends, their occupation. And it's that kind of validation that they want to get, because that could be the job they want, is the validation. So you got to think a bit more like that as well. It's not just the who, it's also the what. The needs aren't vague, latent, and unknowable. They are the metrics consumers use to measure success when getting a job done, because every job can be measured with some sort of outcome or success. So if, again, we go to the whole drill bit analysis, someone isn't buying the drill bit, they're buying the hole. They want to hang a photo or a frame or whatever it might be. They actually want the hole so they can put the hook in and hang the thing. They don't actually want the drill bit, but they need the drill bit to get that part done. And another interesting thing about the jobs to be done, everyone thinks about competitors. So you think about competitor companies. You might think that McDonald's is the same as KFC, or Mars Bar is the same as Snickers. And there's a good example as to why the competitor you think is your competitor is actually not your competitor. So one example could be, and I actually did a study on this, that people don't buy Mars bars for the same reason they buy Snickers. Because Mars bars they see as confectionery, they see as a chocolate bar, but a lot of people who are hungry and don't want to actually go for a full meal, but are still, they're a bit peckish, they see the Snickers bar as an actual way to satisfy their hunger. So they're actually using it in different ways. They're using the Mars bar as a sweet, where they're actually using the Snickers bar to fulfill their need to, well, not be hungry anymore. And there's some other examples for this as well. Why would you do a course on Udemy when you have YouTube? Or you could even go to a university. And there's this whole thing about non-consumption being a competitor as well. Like, why would people buy anything compared to your product? What if they just don't want to buy anything? So the competitors that you think might be a competitor aren't always the case. So again, competitors aren't companies that make products like yours. They are any solution being used to get the job done. So this is a little bit about Anthony W. Ulrich, who came up with the whole Jobs to be Done framework. So he's the founder and executive officer of Strategiven. Strategiven is an awesome company. They have a few other books out there that I recommend if you want to go check them out. I can leave some links in the description below. But today we're going to be talking about data-driven personas, and more in relation to how do you save money on your ads by actually targeting customers that are actually your customers, not just random people. So that's how you waste a lot of money on things like Facebook ads, Google Shopping, Google ads, YouTube ads, is actually just targeting the wrong people as well as the people you want to target. You actually want to separate these out. You want to find your actual audience. There's tags and pixels that I recommend you should always have on your website. So these are LinkedIn Insights, Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, Quantcast Measure. So you probably haven't heard of Quantcast Measure before, and we'll talk a little bit about that. It's free as well, which is great. But you might be saying, Andrew, I don't want to spend on LinkedIn. It's expensive, and I'm in e-commerce. Why the hell would I want to? Why would I want to like sell on LinkedIn? I don't need to put ads up for LinkedIn. Well, you're not going to be running ads on it, but if you have a pixel or an insight tag installed on your website, that platform is still collecting information about the audiences, the visitors that are coming to your website. And you can use these in different ways to layer on top of each other to get more of a holistic view on who your customer is. And before we move into the actual platforms and talk about, what you can get out of them, let me just clarify some things, because I mentioned quantitative versus qualitative, right? So I mentioned more the numbers-based stuff versus the qualitative stuff, which is what they usually focus on when they're creating personas, like the fluffy personas I talked about. Quantitative is based on numbers. So you'll usually find the data in Google Analytics, Google AdWords, advertising platforms, and analytics software. So this is data collected from your actual customers going to your various websites, from your various tools that you have installed. Qualitative is more about customer interactions, customer interviews, market research, and more the psychographic sort of stuff. So what I mean by this is you might go out and do some customer research where you bring in 20 people, you give them all a voucher, and then you ask them their questions to get feedback. It could also be that you go and speak to your customer service team and find out some information about what people are buying, when they're buying it, anything else, any other information you can glean from your customer service team. They're a great resource to get some inspiration from. And then the other thing, like I mentioned, is the whole jobs to be done. So going back to that kind of interview thing, which is what jobs to be done is, you could do a jobs to be done interview to find out on a maybe a smaller scale, like 20 people, what job are they trying to get done by using your product? And why did they switch from maybe another product they were using to your product? So now I want to reiterate why data-driven personas are so powerful. So you can understand your customer on a deeper level, and you're using data like real data to understand this as well, not just fluffy stuff. This is the stuff that you're getting from the people that are actually coming to your website. You can level up your offering, so you can actually improve your UX and do more of the conversion optimization stuff. You can do like stock better products that people actually want, and get rid of the ones that they don't want. and you'll actually find out more about your customer, and you'll be able to be in line with their true needs rather than what you think they want. Because that's what happens to some of us in e-commerce. We actually give people what we think they want, but we sometimes neglect or don't understand what the customer actually wants. Next thing is it'll help you laser target your advertising. So if you want to get cheaper Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever other ads you might be running, then understanding stuff about your customer is imperative, because it means you can double down and get more targeted in these specific things. So if you want to get better results from your Facebook ads and Google ads, then understanding the customer is just super relevant, super important. You need it. And it also helps you to write better sales copy too. So better product descriptions, sales pages, and things like that. You can actually start to listen to how your customers are talking, especially when you're doing the qualitative stuff. Maybe stuff they might be writing to you in Messenger, like Facebook Messenger. They might be asking you questions, or any other kind of tool like live chat. You can actually start to take bits of their vernacular or how they speak. And if you notice a few people saying the same things, especially if there's like industry lingo involved, you can start to use that and put it into your copy. So you're actually starting to speak like them, because like the whole monkey see, monkey do thing, right? They actually, if you speak more like that person, they're more likely to trust you. It's actually a psychological technique. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Google Analytics tag, or more specifically, the Universal Analytics tag. Now, let's dive in and have a look at what you can get out of Google Analytics to understand your customers better. Now, excuse my computer. I think it's about to rocket ship to the moon. It's going to take off. I can hear the fan going berserk. Hopefully getting a new computer soon, so that's kind of exciting. But until then, I'm stuck with this thing, which I think could explode in my face at any point in time. Anyway, going back to this. So what I think you can get out of Google Analytics is a lot of stuff around audience data. So there's obviously the average stuff you can get, which is demographics, geography, behavior. But the big one that I like is going into interests. And there's this thing called in-market segments. And what in-market segments are is the segments where people are actually actively looking to purchase, or they're researching something. And these usually have an affinity or correlation to your store sometimes, or your product. And you can see here that for this particular client, there's a lot of people in market around real estate, apparel, real estate and residential property. So a lot of real estate stuff going on here, financial services. So what I might even glean from this in terms of information is there's a lot of people with a lot of potentially like high paying jobs that are looking at this website. So it could almost mean that they're more of a premium customers, possibly. So interesting, like that's one way of having a look and seeing what you can get out of it. So another really piece of interesting information you can get out of Google Analytics is site search. So what you can use here is actually look for search terms that people are using for your products, because maybe the way you are actually labeling your products is different to how your customer is actually looking for them, or what terms they're using. So we're going back to using their vernacular. So you can see here that, okay, like a lot of brand terms. So they're just literally going straight in for brand. There's not a lot of long tail stuff here. And if I went back, let's go back to, like November last year. We'll see if this changes at all, but it looks like a lot of it is, here we go. So a lot of it is just brand. So a lot of people, when they come in, they use a little search site thing that you see in most websites. You might have one in your Shopify store, and people are going in here and literally just searching for the brand, which is interesting. So a lot of this is driven by brand recognition or brand purchase. So they actually know what brands they're looking for, and maybe they don't know exactly what type or size or whatever it might be, depending on what kind of store you've got. But in this particular case, they're looking for a brand. There's some other things you can get out of here as well, like what mobile devices they're using. So if I go here, maybe what I usually find is the highest spenders actually use Apple iPhone. And if I did a revenue breakdown on here, or even just looking at the conversion rate, we can see here actually that the revenue is mainly iPhone people. So Android people don't know what's going on, but you're not spending much money. So you can see some of them are here, great, they're spending a bit of money, but Apple iPhone, Apple iPad, this is where the cash is. So interesting. But I found this on a number of different websites as well, that usually iPhone users have a lot more disposable income, I think, because they're spending more money. I could be completely wrong. The other cool thing about Google Analytics is you can actually see what content people are consuming on your website as well. So if you have a company blog or a blog on your e-commerce store, then you can also see what content on that store they're consuming, which is interesting, right? Because maybe you don't always have to send someone directly to a page, like a checkout page, maybe a product page. Maybe you could send them to a blog page. Maybe if you had a cheaper piece of like a cheaper channel in terms of like Pinterest or something that makes sense to send someone to, or YouTube ads, for instance, you could use that to drive awareness or drive people to the blog, and then retarget people who have actually been to these pages that tend to actually have a higher page value, which means after they've read that page or looked at that grouping of content, they've gone on to actually make a sale. So next we're going to talk about the LinkedIn Insights tag. And the cool thing about this is we can actually get information on what the customer does in terms of their career as well. So before we used to get this information from Facebook, but they had some issues, obviously everyone knows about that, with their privacy, and they had to take a lot of this information away. You can actually use something like the LinkedIn Insights tool to get that information out. So we can find out how many people work in the company these people are from, what job titles they have, maybe what the actual name of their job title is. So here we've got company size, where we can look at things like job title, so we can see what job title they have. So they're usually directors or owners in this example, which is kind of interesting. What else could we do? We could look at the industry, so where are they coming from? This is a travel website, by the way, so we can see this makes a lot of sense. Travel, tourism, marketing and advertising, financial services, commercial real estate. So you can get some information from here as well. So the cool thing is now we're actually building up some information on, one, who these customers are in terms of age, gender, and location, but now we also know maybe which companies or industries they're working in and their actual job titles as well. So we're kind of narrowing down the field a little bit. So the next one we're going to look at is a really cool tool called Quantcast Measure. Now, not a lot of people know about this one. It's free as well. So again, there's nothing stopping you from installing this on your website. It takes a few weeks and you need a certain amount of data coming through. So a certain amount of visitors coming to your website to start to collect information. But this is invaluable once you start to collect it. And it gives you, again, a much more holistic idea of who your customers are. So you can see here, you've got gender, age, education. So again, we can see this in Facebook as well. But so don't forget, even though you have multiple different tags and pixels on your website, you can use each one to also verify and check to make sure that, yes, that they're all saying the same thing, that they're all roughly in the same age group from the same location. So you can tell, just use them to verify each other, essentially keep them both on, like keep everyone honest. So you can see things like browsing interests as well. And there's a whole bunch of affinity groups around this, which is really interesting. Shopping interests as well. So so they don't have enough data for this, but if you had enough data coming in, you could use this. But the cool thing about this, the best thing about this tool, is you can see what other sites people visited before they came to your website, which is awesome for actually targeting on Facebook ads. So again, they don't have enough here according to this thing, which is really annoying. Maybe I can find another, just bear with me, I might find another client who has this. Okay, so this client has enough data and has been collecting information about what other websites people have come to before they go to their website. So you can see here, there's things around all these different brands. There's Pop Sugar, Women's Weekly Food, Society 6. You could use a lot of these different targeting in your Facebook ads. So this gives you a bit more of a clue of where people also hang out before they come to your website, which is really awesome. So this is probably the main reason I would use this tool. Forget all the other stuff. It's interesting to look at the shopping interests and can definitely help, but this is the bread and butter. This is the gold. You could take this and then build some really cool audiences in Facebook ads with this, and they'd be much more targeted. Again, you want to make sure that your affinity is high. So these have a much higher index affinity. So these are much more likely to actually be in the audience that you want to target. But you could create a few different groups of this. You could create a few different ad sets and just test these as well. But this is gold, and I highly recommend testing this out. So now let's talk about the OG Facebook ads and what we can get out of this platform. So we go into Business Manager and we go into Audience Insights. This will help us get an idea about who potentially we can target before we even start getting people onto our website. So what I would recommend is definitely go and install the Facebook Pixel on your website, and you can use Audience Insights to then help create targeting for the ads you want to run. So if you had a competitor, and this is the best way I find in terms of looking for maybe someone who might be similar to your customer, because if they're going to your competitor, then technically they might be going to your website as well, is say if I was Hulu and I wanted to check up on Netflix. Now, of course, this is going to be a really small overview and you can kind of dive in and look at it yourself. But if I look at Netflix and say I'm Hulu and go, okay, cool. So what does a Netflix audience look like? So I can find out, okay, they're into, what is this? Sales. Okay, let's go up the top. So predominantly women by the looks of it, then men. So 59% women, 41% men. Relationship status, there you go, big proportion are married. Interesting. A lot of the people been to university. Job title, so you can see here, these I take with a grain of salt. That's why I kind of was a bit iffy about it. The other cool thing is, what other pages do they like? Cool, so I could use some of this to understand maybe a little bit more about targeting. So they like donuts and they like fitness. Makes sense, I guess. Eat enough donuts and then you need to go on the treadmill to run them off, I suppose. And then Pizza Hut as well. So you can see here there's some information in terms of what other pages these people who are actually connected to Netflix like. The other cool thing you can do with the Facebook Insights tool is, if you already have a lot of people engaged on your Facebook page, like you got a lot of fans, you can then use that in this tool to find out what they potentially like. So here's one that I use for one of our fitness clients. You can see that from here that they all, okay, so people like pubs, coffee shops, there's bikini bonds, fit chicks. So this makes sense. So I think with this one too, predominantly if I go back, I think a lot are female. So yeah, 75% are female. You can see here most of them are married. Again, university. These, again, grain of salt, right? Like, just don't take it for gospel. Page likes, again, so this is probably where I would go and have a look. So Central Coast Councils, maybe a lot of people from the Central Coast. Same with the dash cams. Okay, cool, we're starting to get a theme going on here. Cleansing bodies, Australian Institute of Personal Trainers. So this is all making sense. And so we could use this information we know about our customers to then go and target more or create lookalike audiences. So there's a whole bunch of things you could do, and all I did was type in the name of our page, and this is the people that are connected to it. So the other cool thing you could do with Facebook is look at the Facebook analytics data as well. So again, like I said, keeping everything in check just to see if some of this actually makes sense in terms of comparing this to your universal analytics tag from Google Analytics. You can also see things like post shares, your popular posts on here as well. So what content are they engaging with on your page? Breakdown of gender, which is really important, where they come from. Obviously this one's all in Australia. Different types of activity. You can set up funnels, retention funnels, cohorts, all a bunch of different things, even journeys. If we look at people, we can actually deep dive into the demographics as well and find out age and gender and things like that. So it's saying no data is available. It might need a bit of time. But if there was something in here, I could compare that to Google Analytics and just to check and see if everything made sense. So this is another reason why I would use Facebook. And the reason why I would actually have the Facebook Pixel installed is because everyone in e-commerce, I reckon at some stage, would be using Facebook ads to drive traffic. And even if you're not using Facebook ads straight away and you're driving traffic through SEO or something else, Facebook is still collecting information on your audience by having that pixel on your website, which means so when you do go to turn on your Facebook ads, it's going to be much cheaper for you, or at least Facebook will be able to understand your audience a lot better. So because you've been maybe running it for 3 months and it's been collecting information, by the time you launch, it should be much more effective. So and what I mean by that is from going from that to starting from scratch. If you started from scratch with nothing, it's going to take a lot longer, and Facebook's going to have to take time to learn, which means you're going to be spending money for it to learn as well, which is not the most ideal situation. So that's pretty much it for this video. I just want to go over again quickly why you would use data-driven personas. Like I said, it's more statistically accurate. So there's more people coming through. It means you're collecting more information about them, which means you're understanding more about who these people actually are. But like I said, it's also important to understand what they're trying to achieve. What's their goal? What is the job they're trying to get done? And does your product actually solve this problem for them? Using all these different methods, like I said, using the different tags to install, using Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, LinkedIn Insights tag, you can then build a more holistic idea of who your customer is with real data. So you've got demographics, age, gender, you've got location, geography, you've got interests, so more psychographics. What do they actually like to do? Who are they? Where do they hang out? What do they read? Etc., etc. And then also career and job. So what is their job title? What career are they in? What industry? How big is their company? You've got all this information now because you've got all these pixels installed. And like I said, when you go to actually create your personas in Facebook ads to target somebody, it's going to be much, much, much more effective. So this is why having data-driven personas is so important. Now, in the next couple of videos we're going to be doing, we're actually going to be setting up our shop for print on demand, and we're going to be going through and testing things on things like Etsy and Big Cartel. We're going to be reducing the amount of videos we put out because we actually just want to do really quality content. So we want to make sure that what we put out is really giving value. So we're not just giving 10-minute snippets. If we can give a whole 30 minutes on something that you can literally go in and learn a crap load from, and then go and pretty much execute on what you need to do for your own businesses. So we're going to be doing a whole thing on going from 0 to hero, from 0 to 1 on how to set up a Shopify store, all the pitfalls that go along with that. We're not going to hide anything. If we suck, we suck. If things happen, then, well, we're going to be really honest about it and say it happened, and then also why as well, so you can avoid those same mistakes, because that's also really important. You don't want to make the same mistakes we're making. So if we can give you information on this or education, we'll let you know. And yes, we have set up a lot of e-commerce stores before. We have an e-commerce consultancy. So yeah, we are a little bit more skilled in that, but does that actually mean that we're not going to make mistakes? No, you're always going to make mistakes because you want to test. This is what I want everyone to realize is it's not about failure. When something happens and it's bad, it's not always a fail. Try and treat it like a learning experience. Now, as long as you haven't gone out and spent 200 grand by mistake, which is a pretty big mistake. If you make a mistake on something, if you screw up on something, but you can get something out of it in terms of some sort of lesson, then you've still got something. You've paid for it. It's been an expensive lesson to learn, but you have got something out of it. So if you like our videos, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the little bell notification so the next time we drop one of these videos, you'll be the first to know. Now, we'll be releasing another one in a couple of weeks, like I said, so keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a longer form one. Until then, keep nerding out on e-commerce. I'm Andrew, and we will see you next time.